Let's call the August 27th monthly meeting of the County Legislature Law Committee to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from last month's meeting. Let's look at them. Motion to approve them. Cunningham, seconded by Ms. Cunningham, all in favor? Aye. All right, motion.
No, this one's fine.
If it's all right with the committee members, I'd like to take the agenda out of order to start with current business. That way we can get some of the folks that are here out and move to the previous business. Is that okay? Does anybody have a problem with that?
Nope.
Okay, so we'll start with item number 25, resolution number 373. Resolution 1A, to clarify various parts, establish the Albany County Affirmative Action Plan. Oh, there we go. Perfect. I didn't see him slip in. All right, good. All right, floor is yours.
Thank you, folks. What I've tried to do here is, Legislator Signoraci brought up a measure, I believe it was in February. I wanted to build a program, build a policy that the county executive will support, that will have support of the unions and the trades and smaller businesses in Albany County, and give them an opportunity to have a good apprenticeship program. Make sure we're meeting a certain threshold. The initial measure that was in didn't meet that threshold, but as we continue to discuss and improve what we have, I think we have a kind of a conglomerate combination of a good policy here, and that's what we're trying to work towards. It also focuses somewhat on disadvantaged businesses and enterprises through our affirmative action plan. That's 0.06% of what they utilize right now are disadvantaged, so we want to make sure that we're putting something in place that protects them. And service disabled veteran small-owned businesses as well, those contractors. Looking forward to any questions. Hopefully move it out with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, great. Well, Mr. Krause, then we'll move on to Mr. Cunningham.
Quick question.
Oh, wait, Mr. Krause first.
I thought you were motioning. Go ahead.
No, I motion a lot, but that's Mr. Chairman, can you explain the differences between this proposal and the one Mr. Signoraci had?
Well, I think Ralph is hot off the press. He can probably talk a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph. The big difference is a dollar threshold.
There's three major differences. The first is the graduation rate, which hopefully you can amend and incorporate into yours.
Which we will.
Is the dollar threshold, and the third one is the MWBE requirements. So those are the three main differences. And as I said, I'm willing to concede. Hopefully he considers the language for the graduation rate that I have in mind. And if doing so, I'm tabling number one anyway, but if that's the case and he accepts that language, I will withdraw my resolution this evening.
So the number you had in yours was 100,000?
It was changed to 200,000. It was increased with the new language. So the only difference in the dollar amount is 200 and 250,000.
And like I said, anything less than 250, the county executive will veto. So I wanted to have a policy in place that would, again, have support across all the stakeholders, and the county exec won't veto.
Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
I appreciate the concern on this, and I appreciate the compromise. I to be honest with you, I do kind of prefer the version that I co-sponsored with Mr. Signoraci. I would be happy to move this forward and support it as a good compromise. I continue to express concerns about not lowering the $250,000 threshold. I don't believe that all the unions are in support of that. I believe the painters have had particular concerns with some county contracts that were below that threshold and probably should have had apprenticeship programs in them. So I do hope we can reach out to them. And
We'll have something in writing tomorrow
let me finish.
from the trades that do support.
Okay, how about the painters?
I'll find out tomorrow if they're going to be on it or not.
Okay, because they had real concerns with that.
Well, they've been approached. We'll see tomorrow.
I think they've been consistent about their concerns with that threshold.
Yeah.
And just how are you feeling about accepting the graduation rate into your resolution?
If I may speak, there's an issue with determining what the class size is in order to determine what graduation rate is. When do you define the class of possible graduates?
Well, if they are a first-time out group and they do not have a pre-existing, they actually get a waiver. So the class size, I don't think is something that should be holding it up, whether it's 1, 5, 10, or 20. I can defer to my counterpart, Mr. Clenahan, on that, but it's a graduation rate. It's just if they graduate anybody into, out of the apprenticeship program.
The current resolution has a graduation requirement. It's not a rate, though, it's not a percentage. Am I misunderstanding? Do yours have a percentage or not? Your previous resolution, the original version of this had I think it was a 30% graduation or some percentage. And the Department of Law discovered that'd be practically impossible to determine a graduation rate based on a percentage because we would never know the class size.
Why would a percentage require a class size?
You got to determine what percentage of the class graduate.
So no percentage would ever fit?
No percentage would ever be, we wouldn't control the class size, the unions would, or
Yeah,
the
but if you
trades.
have, whether you have a class size of 10 one time and it's 30% and that's free, and you have a class size of 20 and it's 6, I mean, it kind of sets the mark.
The question is when the class size is determined. Is it day one of the apprenticeship program, or is it when at the end of it?
What does the State Department of Labor use?
They don't use class size.
They evaluate graduation, don't they?
Yeah, but they don't, they can't, well, they determine whether or not graduation occurred.
So they do it at the end?
Yeah, but they don't know the class size. I'm not splitting hairs. Literally, we would not have the information to determine what the percentage was, because we wouldn't know what the original class size was.
Well, upon graduation, you could wind up having people that die, move, something happens, but as long as 30% of the final number, I would think would be something that would be, because you don't know if people can change careers or career paths that are currently in an apprenticeship program, so it would be 30% upon graduation, the final number.
Right, if you have 5 people that decide they want to be in a labor class and 4 drop out because they want to pursue a different trade, what's the graduation rate at the end of the cycle?
I guess if they don't provide it, then.
Is it 100% because 4 dropped out? Or is it 20% because 1 made it through?
That's what I'm wondering, doesn't the state DOL,
They just determine whether or not
Evaluate at the
they're
end?
graduates.
so sounds like the number at the end, probably, right?
Well, then everybody's 100%.
Mr. Bergdorf.
I'm listening here, and I'm sort of intrigued because what you're debating is how we're going to keep the trapdoor closed so that people, contractors, businesses, can't do business with Albany County. There are about 500 subcontractors in the capital region. About 80% of them are non-union, okay? This book's got a listing of them if anybody wants to take a look at it. And what we're doing, and that's why I'd like to discuss the general policy here. I got 20 years invested in the construction industry. What we're doing is we're shutting the trap door closed. There is a reason why the Capital City Center got 30% MWBE and WBE participation on a huge construction project up the hill, and our goals are about half of that, is because our policies requiring apprenticeship for MWBs and WBEs effectively preclude them from competition. The data you got from the county executive's office a month ago showed that in the last 2 years, there were 2 contractors that were awarded contracts, MWBEs. 2. They got 3 awards. Somebody got 2 of them. So our entire procurement in Albany County, there were 2 contractors that made it through your contraption of trapdoors, which keeps everybody from doing business with the county.
It also promotes the future workforce, too.
But you know,
That's another way to put it.
I respect that, and that's a laudable goal. But there are also ways to actually encourage the workforce by setting exemptions for MWBEs, WBEs, veteran-owned contractors, and small contractors, okay? Even if they're just small contractors from Albany County, and saying, you know, they're upset. Geez, I'm glad to hear the painters are upset. You know why the painters are upset? Because some small contractor probably got a $50,000 contract, and that turned the painters on their ear. So we can't have an MBE or a WBE contractor that doesn't have an apprenticeship program participate in Albany County construction. The other thing this law does, and it's in both of them, and I got to tell you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman, we were supposed to have line copies of stuff, what was new and what wasn't. I've asked multiple times of this committee, both on Ralph's version and on this one, if we could actually see what was new, see what we're doing. Well, one of the things here is we're changing the definition of who a construction contract shall apply to. Between you and me, I just found this out half an hour ago because our staff went through and did some of the work. It now applies to the county or any of its department or agencies. Any contract with an agency. That means the Industrial Development Agency. So now every single project that the county IDA does, private projects for economic development, for a hotel or a law firm or anything that the IDA does, now requires the apprenticeship.
By a highly
Sorry, you're
skilled,
talking about
trained
125.
workforce.
The IDA has a different set of circumstances. It is not part of,
Well,
our policies. have no-
excuse me, shall mean any contract to which the county or any of its department or agencies. There's no definition here, I looked.
It's
Okay,
separate.
it says what it says. So, you know, we're getting this, we still haven't seen all the changes.
Is it, Mr. Bergdorf has a point about the line item underscoring and the bracketing out of old versus new language.
If I could just speak to that, the resolution that requires that kind of changes speaks to a piece of legislation as it moves through. Now, 79 is different than whatever this is, 373. So that doesn't apply, but I did send to the notary's office
I know.
the changes.
So,
Okay.
I did send
Would it
to
be-
them,
would it
just to be clear.
Sure. Would it be possible to send them out to everybody?
I think a vote is anticipated tonight. I can happily do that, so you can have a full.
I personally don't have a problem moving it tonight, but I would like to see them.
Yeah,
for the full
absolutely.
meeting.
Yes.
And I think, you know, if there's other members that want to see them, you know, they should be able to. Excuse me? Good. Yeah, can we get them from?
I'll have it for them.
Great. All right, Mr. Clonier?
I agree with you on that. I don't want to hold this up. I'm curious as to why we're rushing this through until we hear where the trades are, particularly because it feels like the trades may be able to answer some of these questions that have come up tonight. And they are the most affected by this.
I can tell you that because the painters, like you said, may have had exception with it, and maybe they still do. But if I'm not mistaken, there's 8 total. We talk about trades, and there's a total of 7, with the exception of 1, with the painters being the 1.
Are you saying that 7 are in favor of your version?
Correct.
Do they have anything in writing?
I mean, I can get with you offline. I can send you messages that I have from the president, but
I would like to know where they are.
okay. Well, I'm telling you, I have support from them for at least 7 of them.
And
And I can
they-
show you in writing without having the actual memo, but at least written. You can't have, I won't have the memo done today, but I'll have it tomorrow. It's basically what I was told today.
Well, it's a sponsor's prerogative to move it out tonight, and I don't have an issue with it. I understand maybe some members of the committee are gonna have some concerns about it, you know, in order to get them to an up. At the full meeting, I would say, you know, Kevin. You know, to the extent you could share some of that information between now, maybe Wednesday when it moves out of audit and finance, you know, that would be,
Right, and take the best of what Ralph worked on and what we're working on, and put something together really substantial and quality, hopefully.
Okay, with that being said, does anybody else have any questions on this item?
I just want to make,
Concerns? Mr. Bergdorf?
I had hoped that there would be a collaborative approach to when we were doing something and in essence doubling down on a policy which excludes 80% of the construction industry, that there could have been some dialogue about exemptions and actually getting at the root of some of the problems. Workforce development is wonderful. You've had this for 8-10 years. Are more people getting into the construction trades, more minorities? I don't think so. Are any businesses actually doing business with Albany County? We all know the answer to that, but yet the state can run a project up the hill and get over 30% people in there. What was the difference? The apprenticeship program. How does this impact project labor agreements? There's nothing in here for PLAs. It's ironclad. Doesn't say there are any exclusions for PLAs. So you haven't talked about that. And this is what I could figure out in about 45 minutes because we don't have a lined version. But that's me. I'm gonna vote no. And just the tenor of the discussion here about what's acceptable to the trades. When is somebody going to say what's acceptable to the Albany County taxpayer? If you get 10 people who are bidding for a job instead of 2, you may get a better price.
I appreciate your opinion, Mr. Bergdorf.
It's a strongly held opinion.
Right, I would just note, it's any of the 39 members
I'm one
of this
person.
body to introduce a piece of legislation, yourself included, to change this program. That's something you can do, and we'll give it fair consideration, if you feel so strongly about it,
Well,
So, that's just my 2 cents on it. That means, Mr. Fine.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, the Legislative Black Caucus has been discussing possible ways that we can improve upon our affirmative action and WB policy for construction projects. And I think that's something that we definitely have to address, especially that's a very startling fact. As you say, 2, we only had 3 MWB contractors.
three awards to 2 contractors in 2 years. That's the sum total of Albany County's MWBE program.
So
2.
that's very disturbing. If you have, I would like to see those statistics.
That's right here.
Thank you.
County executive sent them to us in a memo.
And, yes, I do remember seeing that. So I was concerned on that original piece of, that original resolution that was going to lower it to 100,000, the threshold, because I know a lot of minority-owned businesses, it would exclude a lot of minority women-owned businesses. This seems to keep it at the same $250 threshold. So I don't see how this
There's more policing, there are more, the unions like it because there are more ways to disqualify people from from having nuanced apprenticeship programs, so they can, the trapdoor gets a little bit closer. No, but I'm answering Sam's concerns. There are differences in here.
Every time you say trapdoor, I'm gonna say promoting the future workforce. Highly trained, highly skilled union labor.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate highly skilled union labor. And but I believe in competition and competitive bidding, and not disenfranchising 80% of the construction community.
Don't like it, they can vote us out, I suppose, right?
Well,
Let's vote it down.
let them vote.
Mr. Kraus, and then I'm calling a motion on this.
It would seem to me that both Mr. Joyce, Mr. Signoracci had these, I won't say competing pieces of legislation, because I think you're trying to put something together. But wouldn't it make more sense for this committee to act upon a document that incorporates all of that, instead of, well, we're going to change this later on, maybe we'll change that, we'll work here with. To me, that doesn't make sense. I think we should do it when we're at the point where we have the final document, addresses some of the concerns Mr. Bergdorf has raised, and really have a structured law, resolution that we can work with, instead of, You know, I mean, what's it gonna look like in the or the Audit and Finance Committee? Maybe they bring up some other issues, so now what are we dealing with here?
They won't be as substantial as you're describing. And what we have here, we've worked on with the Department of Law, been working on it for months. It's as developed as we're going to get it.
All right,
I can certainly appreciate where you're going, Mr. Kraus. I think you, Ms. Cunningham, worked for a long time on that redistricting bill and got to a meeting of minds where you really have quite a comprehensive piece of legislation there, you know, so not everybody works that way, you know. We can only deal with what's before us.
I understand.
But I appreciate what you're
Okay,
saying.
all
I
right.
think that's a
And
very
they're
fair
making it
point.
worse.
That
Okay.
being said, you know, we have a lengthy agenda, so if there's no more questions, I'd really like to.
I have said my
Do we have a
piece.
motion to move it?
Yes, that's the minority construction.
Is there a
Yes,
motion to move item number 25?
I will.
I'll have that motion.
Okay. Favorable recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. I will second that motion. All in favor of moving Resolution 373 out, favorable recommendation, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. All right, the motion carries, the bill's out with favorable recommendation. 5.
Thank you, folks.
All right, item number 26, resolution number 374. This is a rules change, I believe, right? Also, Mr. Joyce's. Note, this seems pretty similar to Mr. Signorati's, right? 26?
I'm gonna table this.
Okay.
Anything having to do with rules reform, rules changes, I'm asking folks that can do what they want, but I'd like to kind of bring everything together and organize it and let the attorneys work on it during the day, just so we know we're not tripping over our feet, you know, on the rules, and we're not, you know,
From your lips to God's ears.
right?
Mr. Joyce.
But again, members can do what they want, but anything having to do with a rules change, I request that folks table, I'm gonna
Okay.
table this.
What's, I just a very quick question. Is there a difference between this one and Mr. Signorati's rules change? What is it?
This is only essentially just changing the name of court facilities and calling it, you know, the Nursing Home Renovation Committee, Special Committee.
His does that as well, or similar things, but his also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph, it gets rid of the Committee on Public Works and creates a whole new committee, which is drastically different.
Building
than
bridges
this.
and
This is taking a defunct committee and giving it a special purpose, which Ralph's does as well,
Okay,
but his goes much further.
got it. You want to vote on yours tonight, right?
Rules, yeah, 60 days, we're voting 60 day rules.
Got it. All right, so we'll table item number 26, the requested sponsor. Item number 27, resolution 376, this is a public hearing on Little Park. This is yours, Sam. Yeah, 27.
Yeah, I'm gonna table this for now. We're still in some discussions over the legal language on it. But hopefully next month we'll be pushing and moving.
So you don't want the public hearing out?
No, because if we change it, then
Okay, sure, that's a very fair point. All right, we're gonna table 27, 28. This is Mr. Grimm and Mr. Jakes. Great, resolution 379, amending the rules and regulations for Oakland County employees regarding lunch activity.
Tabled.
We're gonna table item number 28. Item number 29, County Clerk, I believe is here, Mr. Hidley, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, appreciate you letting me come forth today. I have a proposal in front of you to do an intermunicipal agreement with Schoharie County.
Okay?
And the agreement would allow Albany County Hall of Records to store 62 boxes of microfilm, their original microfilm. I think you remember when Sandy and Irene came storming through New York State, it devastated Schoharie County to the point where their records were totally destroyed, damaged, and my predecessor, Tom Klingon, stepped up to the plate and gave them a lot of work at hand. These original silver microfilm rolls, we can actually store them in the vault that we have that's climate controlled. That's where we keep our storage of microfilm there currently. It's not going to take up a long time. The agreement would be for a 10-year period where Schoharie County, if they needed any of those microfilm rolls, the originals, they could come in and see our staff and we would go get it for them. It's an excellent opportunity to assist with Schoharie County's disaster preparedness plan. God forbid that a disaster like that should ever happen again, but if it does, Albany County is the partner that they need in this particular project to get it done the right way, and I hope that you find favorable with it also.
Any questions? Mr. Kraus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Higley, is there a cost associated with our storing this microfilm?
No.
What is our liability if this microfilm is somehow lost in a building fire? We lose all of their records. What's our liability?
Well, the intermunicipal agreement actually has the clauses in it that will protect us from the actual, if anything happens to that microfilm.
Good question.
So we're taken care of.
We are taking care of this, I made sure of that. So
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
The county attorney's office has
They,
reviewed this,
yes, they
signed
put this
off on
together.
it.
Yes, they did.
Great. Any other questions? All right, can I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Clenihan, seconded by Mr. Mayo. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 29 is out. Item number 30.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for coming. Item number 30, I believe, Heather's here. Excellent. Ms. Worth is here from the District Attorney's Office. 30, 31, 52 are all theirs. Item number 30, authorizing the submission of a grant application in agreement with New York State DCJS.
Just a quick note, it is the Aid to Prosecution Program, not the Aid to Persecution Program. Just want to make sure everybody is clear on that one. This grant is for $176,540, and this grant supports the salaries of the chief, the ADA, as well as the chief of the major offense unit, and it supports the prosecution of violent felony offenders. It's a grant that we've had for several years, longer than I have been in the position, and the funding comes back year after year.
Any questions? Motion by Mr. Clenihan, second by Mr. Feeney. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 30 is out. Favorable recommendation. Item number 31, authorizing the submission of a grant application and agreement regarding motor vehicle theft and insurance fraud prevention program.
This grant is for $65,825. This is a joint grant application that we submit with the Albany Police Department, and it is to combat motor vehicle theft and insurance fraud within the city of Albany. The salary goes to support the prosecutor who mainly deals with motor vehicle theft and insurance fraud in the city. And it also asks that we, kind of reach out a little bit to the other jurisdictions, because if someone is, accused of stealing a car in the city of Albany, they might be doing it, across the border in the other counties, or in the other cities and towns in the county. And so the prosecutor does meet with the other police departments to ensure that the efforts are coordinated in that fashion, that we're not missing things because different ADAs handle different courts.
Great. Any questions?
I'll move it.
Motion by Mr. Kraus, second by Ms. Cunningham. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 31 is out with favorable recommendation. Item number 32, authorizing the submission of a grant application and agreement with the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee.
So this grant is for $131,650. This is a highly competitive grant, and two, they call them TSRPs, or Traffic Safety Prosecutors, are selected throughout the state, and they are on the Governor's Traffic Safety Board, and their job is to travel and train police officers within Albany County with the best standards that they learn from around the state and around the country. And the funding goes to support the bureau chief of our motor vehicle theft, or our motor vehicle unit, as well as an assistant, and it supports all the travel that is associated with the grant responsibilities.
Question.
Mr. Kraus, then Mr. Flanagan.
Heather, are all law enforcement agencies that operate in Albany County allowed to be trained under this? I mean, Colony, Bethlehem, all the others?
Yes.
So everyone will receive these services?
So what we do is we'll set up a training, whether it's on, drug recognition, DRE, or it's on, another DWI, training, and we offer it out to everyone in the county, including the state police as well, because the more that are on the roads, the safer theoretically the roads will be. And then the determining factor is usually on the departments and who's working and who can make it that day, but we absolutely offer it to everyone.
Great, thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Clenihan?
Yeah, that was mostly my question, but similarly, do city and town attorneys' offices have the ability to participate in this, because most of the vehicle traffic cases are prosecuted by localities?
You know what, we have, I'm sure they would absolutely be able to attend. You know, it's mostly for recognition on the side of the road, but I think that brings up a great point, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I have a motion. Motion by Mr. Feeney, seconded by Mr. Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Item number 32 is held with favorable recommendation. Item number 33, authorizing agreement with New York State Office of Bills regarding council at First Marriage. Is here. Thank you for your time, Mr. Hare. It's a pleasure to see you as always.
Thank you, sir. This is the Council at First Appearance second grant distribution that I'm asking that the committee approve for the full legislature. The first grant ran from 2013 through 2016. As this one was delayed in getting to the county and then getting approval. This grant was supposed to have started in 2017. We didn't get the RFP until after the first of the year. So the 3-year grant, which is $749,700, starts in, I believe, October, and will run for 3 years. The term will have to be extended to cover the 3 years. The improvements here will address issues. Well, first of all, the Council of First Appearance is to provide legal counsel for everyone who appears for the first time on any new matter, and a new matter could be an unpaid fine, unresolved community service, anytime a warrant is executed and someone is picked up regardless of their financial ability. Council of First Appearance through the Public Defender's Office now, but with this second grant distribution, it will include the conflict offender, and then based on a separate distribution, there may be enhancements in the 18B assigned counsel plan, and 18Bs may be eventually approved to participate in this second distribution. Right now, there's 4 teams of 3 attorneys. They rotate on a weekly basis, and they're on call 24/7. And they decide who's going to be point, but it's a team approach, and it has worked quite well. It needs improvement, and I think that with the enhancements that are going to be able to be made due to additional funding in this grant, that will be alleviated. The main reason that I'm saying this is that there is a grant-funded position for someone to do the arraignments during working hours. That person will be housed at Albany County Correctional Facility. The busiest court is Colony, about a mile away. They do arraignments almost every morning at 8 or 9 a.m. That person will be going to the courts in Albany County where arraignments are called off hour for the court, but during regular working hours. So the Council at First Appearance teams will then be available on the off hours of 4:30, 5 o'clock until 8 the next morning. The stipend for each attorney on rotation, so it's once every 4 weeks, and when we get more teams, it'll be once every perhaps 5 weeks, 6 weeks, is now $800. That's going up to $1,000. We have had some reduction in the number of attorneys willing to do this. It's strictly voluntary.
Really?
Yes, at $800, because you're on call and you get called out at 3 in the morning and you go to court and you start back home and you get called back again. It's a yo-yo type of thing, and sometimes it's abusive. So it's voluntary, and we've had attorneys not want to do it, but I think with additional people participating from the conflict offender, and I know that they have an interest in this, and the addition in the stipend, that the interest will stay consistently high. This will also address arraignments for Raise the Age, which goes into effect in October 1st. So there's a whole new group of 16-year-olds who will be treated as adolescents in youth parks and youth courts. And right now, most of the courts who are asking for counsel at first appearance will call for assistance maybe till 10 o'clock at night and then start again at 6 or 7 in the morning. But some courts will call for assistance throughout the evening and night. With counsel or with Raise the Age, it's required that the arraignments take place as needed during the evening, during the night. So there will be more calls to go out and do arraignments, and they will be longer calls because probation has to be called, a courtroom has to be opened, the judge has to be there, the probation has to do an intake, and then the arraignment will take place. So it'll be a longer process. The new attorney that I mentioned before will also be handling matters that come up at the correctional facility where inmates wish to speak to an attorney, which will be a great time saver for the attorneys during the day who have regular court assignments.
Any questions from members of the committee about the program?
Just a really quick comment.
Yeah, sure.
It's incredibly important that defendants have counsel at every stage of the process, particularly at the beginning. So this has been an excellent success so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing your enhancements.
It really works. I mean, I don't get the stipend, but I do participate when they can't find somebody.
That's great.
And I've gone out and just showing up and having an attorney there has made a world of difference.
Absolutely.
Where a judge may very well remand, set bail, with an attorney's there and they get to hear from the defendant's point of view on something. Very often they are released in their own custody or released under supervision. It's been very valuable.
I have just one question. So the program was initially slated when we started for 3 years, right?
Yes.
Assuming that the state doesn't, put more money into ILS for these grants, what's the plan gonna be? I mean, I know we're not there, but are we contemplating that down the road?
I think that with
Cross that bridge when
indigent
we get
legal
to-
services, the plan is to expand. So is your concern regarding the one employee that we're hiring?
No, the money. My concern
Oh,
is
the
the
money.
money.
The money is, if it doesn't come, the shutting down of the program will just occur naturally. The one employee is going to be hired based on a grant, and if the grant doesn't get continued, then that employee would lose his or her job. This is probably going to come up on an ongoing basis when indigent legal services money starts coming in large amounts beginning in 2019. We'll be hiring people based on grant money.
Item 33, any other questions?
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Feeney, second by Mr. Clenaghan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. 33 is out with a favorable recommendation. Thank you for your time. Item number 34, prohibiting non-disclosure provisions in certain settlement agreements.
Good evening,
Here's the resolution.
Appreciate that.
Resolution? Is this the resolution? Yeah. Okay, why don't you tell us what this is?
So this is a resubmittal from that the county executive submitted back in February. This is a non-disclosure agreement. It's just that remove any agreements from any settlements for all with our county parties.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I notice in the executive's resolution, I guess that's what we're using here, Is his resolution, is the resolution? Number 3, it says, "Nothing herein contained shall be deemed or construed to prohibit a victim's request for anonymity."
Yeah.
Who does the victim make the request to, and who decides it?
I believe this is removing, the only time that this can be applied is if the victim agrees to that or suggests that term.
Mr. Clarion?
I guess I've been a little unclear in how that will work practically from the first time it was introduced, because on one hand, you say these provisions are unconscionable, but on the other hand, they're optimal out of. I don't see how that's gonna work. I mean, unconscionable is a pretty sweeping term there.
I believe it's more be of an opt-in option
An opt-in by the victim,
by the victim, yes.
so the default would be what? The default would be,
That the item, the agreement would be disclosed.
Mr. Bergdorf?
At one point in time, we had talked about having the county attorney come talk
Yes.
to us about this. I mean, I have a number of questions. I mean, I am extremely sensitive to victims in this instance. You know, I'd like to know what Karen Ziegler thinks. I'd like to know what someone who spends each and every day protecting victims and has gone through these types of tragedy with victims, does she believe this adequately protects victims? Because I agree with the general tenet of this. I don't think anything should be secret so that it could be swept under the rug. But to the extent that things that happen at the jail or in a supervisor-employee relationship, or not late relationship, but occurrence, I would want to make sure that absolute deference goes to the victim, and that the victim's rights and responsibilities were not just taken into consideration, but were acted upon. And I don't know how to do that as a,
Can we
you know,
get
from
the county attorney or
professional
one of his
law.
representatives from the Department of Law to come and speak on this?
Yeah, I was advised that they are available, and there might be some new information on this, but I was told that just the time that this committee meets was a personal conflict that the committee was made aware of previously, but he is willing to come and meet with you and answer any of your questions.
Let's table.
I think those are very good points that we need to hear more
I
about.
think so.
Okay.
Let's table.
All right, so let's table this for now. If you guys can communicate with the Department of Law, have the county attorney come. And can I get a motion to table this?
You gotta vote on it.
Motion.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? All right, so we're gonna table this for now. Have the county attorney or one of his representatives come next month. We'll hear him out and hopefully push this out there. Sound good?
Thank you very much.
All righty. Wait, don't go far. Item number 35.
That's not me.
Oh.
He said with gusto.
Authorizing the county executive to send a letter of support for the land bank's application for funding from the agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is just seeking approval to sign a support letter. It's going for the annual funding grants from the State Attorney General's office. There's a $2 million cap on applications, so as they will be requesting the full amount, and hopefully they get it to support their operations.
Great. Any questions? Motion. Mr. Kraus, seconded by Mr. Bergdorf. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Adam's out. Favorable recommendation.
Can I ask a question after?
Of course.
Oh.
Do we know if how much funding there is available? What's the,
Adam had thrown a number out, I don't know it off the top of my head.
but there is a pool?
Yes.
It's
For
not-
all
What's the- We have the numbers.
There's a statewide pool, yes.
Paul, Mr. Bergdorf,
Yeah, no.
they're applying for $2 million from the state.
No, I understand that,
Well,
but
the total.
what's the
That-
corpus for the
okay.
state? Is it $4 million or $40 million?
That would have to
I
be
believe it's a lot closer to the latter, but I will get that number for you.
Okay,
And this is for 2019,
yes.
because theoretically, well, no matter what, we'll have a new attorney general next year. Perhaps that person will have an even greater commitment to this, and we'll be talking
That
about
would be
more money.
wonderful. God, that would be wonderful. Okay, item number 1, previous business, resolution number 79, Mr. Signarochi.
This item is going to be tabled at the request of the sponsor.
Okay, thank you,
Depending
Mr.
on what we just debated a few moments ago.
Okay, great. Item number 2, resolution 133. This is Mr. Signarochi also?
Yes, sir. I'm invoking the 60-day rule for my resolution. Is there a first, a second? All those in favor, aye. Motion passes. See you later.
See what?
I was just being a little funny.
All right. So, what, you want to vote tonight on this?
Yes, I'm invoking the 60-day rule.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a favorable recommendation. It's been here for a few months.
Sure
and-
has. All right. All right, motion by Mr. Clanahan, seconded by Mr. Feeney. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? One,
Are we moving?
2, 3.
Well,
He's asked for a vote, a favorable recommendation. The motion was made by Mr. Clanahan, seconded by Mr. Feeney. The vote is to move it out with a favorable recommendation. Did you have a question, Mr. Kraus?
No, I'm just voting no.
Okay, so who's in favor? Raise your hands. Okay, you got this, counsel?
Hold on, just keep your hands up for accuracy's sake.
Okay, who's opposed? Bergdorf, Kraus, Platsky. Oh my. Okay,
So you're opposed? I didn't get your vote, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, we need to vote.
up.
You're up.
Fine.
Okay. So this is moving out? I thank you so much, and hopefully law won't have to see me for a couple of months.
I hope, well, in light of what Mr. Joyce just put in, I hope you guys can work something out before the meeting.
Yes, I'm sure
Or
that I
with
will
all
be
these other-
withdrawing mine next month.
Huh? What did you say?
That's right, yeah.
Item number 3, local law C, paid sick time. We have a handout. Mr. Bullock is here.
Handout, everybody got the handout?
Everybody's got the handout with number 3 on top.
I'll bring my counsel with me if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Here's the handout. Does everybody have the handout?
Yeah.
Can I have the handout?
I don't think there's enough copies.
I have one now.
I got one.
You want to pass them around, Amanda? Does anybody need the handout? Okay, Mr. Bullock, if you want to take us through the changes and talk about this.
Yeah, I think it's self-explanatory, so I'll go through the amendments real fast.
Sure.
The first one, amendment to delete the reference to the Human Rights Commission and change to the County of Albany. That's under section 3A. We're changing the definition agency. I'll further elaborate that under section 9 when we get to that section. Amendment to ensure all employees in chain businesses are counted. It's important that we do the count everybody in a franchise agreement in the county, and that's all this does, is say that every employee in a chain business within the county of Albany is counted. So that's adding language to the definition of employer in section 3C and 3G. Okay, amendment to cap the accrual of paid sick time at 40 hours unpaid for employers of fewer than 5 employees, 40 hours paid sick time for employers with 5 to 99, and 72 hours paid sick time for employees with 100 or more employees. What we're amending here is we're leveling it out. We're saying that almost everybody is going to have 5 days paid sick leave, and everybody means everybody from 5 employees and above to 99. So that's going to cover most employers, and that's what we're doing. The very large employers in Albany County will have 72 hours paid sick time, and I think that's important. Not just because I believe that the larger employers can afford it, but I think it's important in terms of the hospitals, of the nonprofits who employees currently don't get sick time, and that's a really important amendment. I think it's self-explanatory what we're doing, AB 123. Turning the page, amendment clarifying employer policies can allow employees to loan sick time to other employers. That's an addition, and we're glad to get that. These were all from members of the legislature, most of them. Amendment to only require employees to post notices if provided by the agency. Section 6A, and will now provide notices in the primary language spoken by the employee besides English. That's what it says. Okay, and now Section 9, getting back to the current language following the clarification of the duties of the agency. Once again, the Human Rights Commission is being deleted, and what we're doing is substituting the agency designee, and the agency designee by the county executive to resolve the complaints. And we're also adding next clarifying language in the administrative enforcement provisions, and that language is in the amendments also. The amendment to restrict civil actions to those exhausting agency complaint remedies or failing to have a complaint acted upon within 120 days. We are once again indicating a final administrative action has been done, which will include a summary of the investigation and notice sent to of the investigation and resolution of a complaint. So it adds and gives more, I think, resolutions of complaints and spells it out a lot better. It revises Section 10B, and it reads as follows. After 120 days following the filing of a complaint with the agency under Section 10A2, if there's been no administrative action of the complaint the court can review the administrative decision. So we tightened up the language on the administrative process, and that's all in this amendment. Now, the last amendment is to exclude construction workers covered by a collective bargaining agreement. We have consulted the painters union on this, and we have acceptable language from the trade unions on this issue. And that's the amendments.
Doug, is it possible to get the amendments incorporated into the newest version and recirculated around to the members of the committee? Because the local law that's in the packet does not reflect these changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just send around an updated version of local law, give it to council's office so that they can
I
get it
have my
out.
secretary with me today.
No, give it to council's office,
Yeah,
not your council.
yeah, your counsel, yeah.
Yeah, everybody. Okay. So what do you
I
members
want
have
it to go to a
questions?
hearing, that's what I want.
Okay. Well, let's
Didn't we have to?
well, Mr. Kraus and Mr. Cunningham.
I keep getting...
And then Mr. Berger.
Doug, thank you for submitting these. I don't know if I'm the only one sitting at this table that just laid eyes on this tonight, but in my opinion, the due diligence of a legislator when confronted with 3 pages of amendments to a piece of legislation usually means that I need some time to compare what's going on here with the original bill and make an assessment as to whether or not I agree to these amendments. So I am not in a position to vote on this tonight because of that. Not that your explanation wasn't a good one, but there's always more to it, and there are questions I know I would have in going through it. So I would echo the chairman's suggestion that we put this together with the rest of the bill and then bring it up to us again so we can all have time to review it, go through it, ask questions, formulate those questions, things of that nature. And then it will require yet another public hearing, will it not?
Well, we don't have the public hearing resolution, right? So they're significant enough that I'm of the belief we're probably gonna need another public hearing. So
I
we
think
need
so.
another public hearing resolution introduced, referred to committee, voted out, and then.
I would recommend
and then
that
we need
we
to schedule-
table this then until you're able to put it all together in one document.
Well, we can't just have a public hearing, you know.
No,
We gotta go through the process, which is to introduce another resolution. We're doing this with the redistricting bill right
Right,
now.
right.
This should be tabled.
So, yeah, I mean, we can't vote on it without that public hearing. So, Mr. Klang and Mr. Fine.
Comment and a
Mr.
question.
Bergdorf, did you want to chime in here?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question.
Okay, so we'll go Klang and Bergdorf. Fine.
Comment and a question. On your 6A amendments, those are particularly important. A lot of that was addressed by the state in the State Wage Theft Prevention Act, so we might want to take a look and see what the Department of Labor did in terms of creating a language template for that law and kind of borrow that here. That's already been done, so that's a good thing. And my question is, I actually thought I was already on this. Can I please be added as a co-sponsor?
I think I'm on it.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. Bergdorf, I'm fine.
Are these, Doug, is this, in your estimation, the only set of amendments that are currently on the table?
Yes,
Okay.
these are the
so-
final amendments.
As proposed by
As proposed.
by the sponsor. So there was no consideration, maybe consideration was given, but nothing that would create any level of exemption for not-for-profits or anything like that?
Oh, we've talked about that over and over again, and you know.
So it's not included in here?
It's not included in
Okay,
that.
no,
Not-for-profits
fair.
are covered.
That's fair. Can you tell me if somebody makes a complaint, how it actually will work in Albany County? Who will they make the complaint to? Who?
May I answer that?
Excuse me, I don't know who you,
You're on
I
behalf
don't
of the
know who
sponsor.
you, I don't know who you are.
I'm Anita Thayer. I'm an attorney, and I worked with Doug on this language tonight.
Okay, all right.
So, the way that this is written now, a designee, the county executive would designate an employee to receive the complaints.
Okay.
And that, so the person would make a complaint to that employee, who would then do an investigation.
One employee, or is it a department, or, no, I'm,
Whatever the county executive designates. However,
Okay.
the county executive designates responsibility for carrying out the provisions of this act.
okay,
So that employee would do an investigation, or that group of employees, and would write up their report and make a determination as to whether the law has been violated or not.
so we don't know who the employees are, we don't know how many employees we need. This is potentially, well, it impacts thousands of businesses in Albany County. There could be 200 claims a year, there could be 1,000 claims a year. What staff is going to investigate? Say there are 200 cases, who's going to do that?
Well, first of all, it's not, the effective date is 6 months after the county legislature adopts the law. So nothing's going to happen in this fiscal year, even if the law is adopted.
That was not my question.
I understand that.
Okay,
And, I mean, I think the anecdotal experience with most agencies that have these kind of complaint mechanisms is that there are not that many complaints.
Right.
So we would expect that probably the complaints could be handled by an employee who's has a part-time responsibility to follow up with the enforcement of the law. There may be some additional responsibilities in terms of notification and publicity.
This gets adopted, the employers like it, saves them on absenteeism.
Fine, Mayo, Connie. And then we can come back to you.
well, part two of my question is, personally, I don't believe that is a rational, it may be rational. I do not believe that is a realistic response. I believe that a bureaucracy has to be set up to do this. I believe that investigations have to have due process. Who is going to hear if your part-time county executive's employee says, Sammy, you're guilty? What's the procedure by which Sammy can say, no, I'm not? How does that work? How does the appeal work? Is that laid out in the law?
Well, there's no administrative appeal.
No administrative appeal?
You can file a lawsuit if there is a completed finding and you think that it does, and you want to argue that there's not substantial evidence supporting the finding.
So there is no appeal, we would be
There's no
telling every
administrative-
small business that they would have to go to an Article 78 based on the finding and a recommendation of a part-time employee in Albany County yet to be identified with a caseload that may be significant. I believe there's a
We can get information for the legislature about numbers of complaints that have been filed in municipalities with comparable legislation.
Well,
We can
also,
get that information. We
if-
don't
I
have
think-
it tonight.
There's a number of members that
Okay.
have other questions.
I think we need a fiscal impact statement, Mr. Chairman.
You know, I only run the law committee.
Okay.
I think that issue will have to be taken up with the audit and finance. Mr. Fine.
I think that's a reasonable answer, but my question is, how do we not have there was never a resolution for a public hearing introduced?
So there was a public hearing held. These are significant enough
Oh, so now
amendments
we
that have now
have to-
triggered, they're not technical in nature, so we can't just, ignore them. So we're gonna have to get another public hearing resolution drafted, introduced hopefully in the next couple of days, put on the agenda, for the October meeting.
It'll go on the agenda for the September meeting.
On the agenda
It'll be
for-
heard in October, or excuse me, at the end of September. That'll be the public hearing. Excuse me. Let me back up. It's been a long day. It'll go to the full legislative meeting, the resolution itself, which will be referred, obviously, by the chair to committee. The committee will vote on that at the end of September.
That makes sense,
Public
yeah, I
hearing
think
wouldn't be
it's,
until October.
correct.
Right.
I had not remembered, there's so many speakers that come during every meeting, it's hard to remember what,
Is that-
there's
so
actually a
that-
public
that looks
hearing
like
and
the
not a public
timeframe.
comment period.
So that's the next stage, Doug. If you can get the public hearing resolution drafted and introduced, like what they're doing for the redistricting one, we'll get it through the process. We'll hold the public hearing as soon as possible.
Okay.
I think, for now, we're gonna have to table the local law to have the other public hearing, right?
Why do you have to table?
Because we haven't had the public hearing yet. We need to have the public hearing. We can't just, we can move out the underlying bill without the amendments, but,
No, I have to move out the amendments.
yeah, so we gotta have another public hearing on the amendments.
Okay.
Because it's been changed substantially,
Yeah.
right? Do you wanna talk to your counsel over there? Is that, Anita, are you following this? What we're saying here?
And could you explain again the whole procedure?
The amendments to the underlying bill that's in the packet
Right.
are significant enough to
Right.
trigger another public hearing.
Right, no.
We can't just move out the bill until we have the public hearing.
Okay,
It's like the public hearing has to come first,
okay, and then this committee votes on the
and then,
recommendations?
yeah,
Okay.
that's,
All I want is you to move to a public hearing.
we don't have a resolution to do that though. That's a separate resolution. We get the local law, and then we get the public hearing resolution. They're different things, they're different animals. Right?
Okay.
This is the same issue we're facing with redistricting. We had the public hearing on the redistricting, a bunch of changes were made at the behest of members. Now there isn't a second public hearing for the redistricting, so we need to introduce one and do this whole process. Yeah, it's delaying things, and there's no way around it. We can't move the bill out without the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's delaying thing, I think it's following proper procedure.
Well, sure.
I mean, Mr. Bullock can amend his legislation without this committee's authority and approval. He can do whatever he wants with the
Well,
legislation.
sure, he's just trying to go through the
Yeah.
proper protocols. Mr. Manager, you have a question? I'm sorry, we got a little second.
Just quickly, Doug, is there any provision for the employers that employ a bunch of college students? And I'm thinking about, say, Guptill's Ice Cream, they have 80 to 100 college students. And I see you have 90 days, after 90 days, they accrue their sick leave, their sick time. But if you have college, say 80 college students working in an ice cream place in the middle of May, you have June, July, middle of August, most of them don't go back to school until, say, the first week in September. So you could take 80 kids and they all decide in the last couple of weeks that they're going to take their time off. I mean, you basically shut down a business. I was just wondering if maybe that could be extended to 120 days or something like that.
Well, I think the 90 days is covered, any seasonal employee. And, they won't be able to accrue it and gain enough accumulation to even get close to the time to using it. So, 90 days is a lot of time, and I'm not for extending the definition of a seasonal employee. And that's going to exclude a lot of people. I don't want to exclude any more people.
If you had, say, 3 months of...
3 months is...
It's at 30 hours a week, that would be, what, 9 days?
90 days.
They could get the last 2 weeks, then show up and get paid and close the
They
business
would
down.
have never accumulated that many days.
They
That's
accumulate
all I'm
from day
saying.
one.
Joanne?
Right, for
Yeah.
30 hours.
So for every week,
Feel free.
A couple things. One is, thank you, I like the amendments. I think they strengthen the bill. I also think they are reflective of many of the comments that many of us have been reaching out and communicating. So I appreciate that. I think they strengthen the bill. I do think, and I was concerned about the seasonal issue, but I mean, most college students, their first day of classes was today or even last week. I mean, I dropped my 2 off last week. So, I mean, 3 months is, you know, I think adequate time. You know, most kids are starting to work, you know, early June and then done at the middle of August, unless you're on a trimester and, you know, your schedule's a little different, but you also start later. So I think the college kid piece is covered if that's, you know, what is intended. I also like, in particular, the changing of kind of the enforcement, because I do think what you did is put it concretely in the office of the county executive to put together a game plan to enforce it. I was kind of uncomfortable with the mushiness of the Human Rights Commission, which I feel like is, you know, we tend to use a lot as a place to, you know, have somebody enforce. And I was going to revisit that issue with my colleagues, perhaps at the end of this year, if we're looking for next year, and we keep, you know, having the mystical Human Rights Commission with no budget enforce things. We should give them a budget and give some teeth. But so I like this as an alternative. I do think that going to Paul's comments, I think rather than surmising or guessing or making assumptions about a certain level of complaints, I think that your approach is a much more data-driven approach. You obviously work on this issue across the country, and I'm sure you have reasonable and probably very practical data about what the enforcement issue is going to entail. So I would suggest that we not make assumptions about, you know, whether it's thousands of complaints and so forth. And lastly,
I don't actually work for such an organization, but I am in touch with those organizations. Okay.
That's fine. And then lastly, I would just say that one of the most compelling things about this discussion has been, and some folks are here, has been the many, many individuals who took the time, some of them bringing their little babies to the session to say, look, this has affected me personally. I, you know, didn't get a mammogram or didn't get something checked out because I couldn't take a sick day without not getting paid that day. That is a very reasonable expectation if you are contributing your work life to a company or business or organization, even not for profit, to expect that you would be entitled to some reasonable sick time. I also would note that I received, and I'm sure we all did, many, 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 many emails from businesses and organizations in opposition to this. Every single one of them, I did this for probably a week, I Googled that person and looked at the business that they were writing on behalf of. I would say that every single one of them probably already offers paid sick time. They were law firms, they were accounting firms, they were real estate agencies, they were consulting firms, they were on State Street, they were on, I mean, after a while, it just was obviously an orchestrated grassroots effort by, you know, the business community, by organizations that already offer paid sick days. I am 100% confident of that. The folks that don't get sick time are the folks that show up at the hearing room and tell us their stories about coming to work, having to be forced to because they need the paycheck. And I just think it's time to step up and make a change like this. We have to go through the process, we have to amend the bill, we have to offer up another public hearing date, but I would not consider that a delay. I would consider that appropriate process and protocol, and I'd like to be added as a sponsor.
Okay, so this being said, we have a lot more on the agenda. If it's all right, Doug, if you can get the public hearing resolution drafted in the council so we can,
We'll draft the resolution, get it in the council.
and
so
we can
go
get
to
it into
hearing.
committee, move it out, and the faster we do that, then the faster we can consider the bill on the merits and have a healthy discussion on it, as amended. And I would just ask if you can take the one that's in the agenda, circulate the updated draft that incorporates the memo, right? So that
Okay.
when we're looking at the final bill, we don't have
Alright.
a second thing confusing us. The final bill is the final bill with the amendments.
And do it as a red line.
Red line?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So Doug, can we table it at your request? Because we gotta have this public hearing? Okay, so we're gonna table it. That's the agenda for the members of the committee. We're not gonna sit on this thing, one way or another, it's coming out. Positive, negative, you name it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna table 3. The resolution on the public hearing is gonna come in. Item number 4, this is Mr. Drake's anti-nepotism bill. This is being tabled at his request. Items number 5 and 6 are Mr. Clanahan's. These are the public hearings.
5, 6, 7, and 8 can be tabled, it's fine.
Oh, you want to table it? Okay, 5, 6, 7, and 8, we're going to table Mr. Clanahan's request. Item number 9, local law I. This is Mr. Miller's building code fire sprinkler law. I spoke to him. We're tabling this at his request. We're giving out a handout. The letter went out to the municipalities as Mr. Clanahan requested on Thursday. So they're on notice that this is coming down the pike. And I told him next month, he can come now that concern has been addressed. And, if he wants, we'll go on his bill then. But he said we can table this at his request now.
I'm sorry, what number is that?
And there's a handout on item number 9. We're gonna pass it around.
Yeah, the members should all have a copy of the handout. There's one important thing that needs to be pointed out about the handout. This was put together by the Department of General Services, analyzing the financial impact and then enforcing the law. It's important to note that when DGS looked at this, they were looking at an old version of the law which assumed an annual inspection by DGS. So we're going to work on getting something else from them. There is not an annual inspection requirement in the law currently. So we need to have them put out another handout that reassessed under that light. But this handout's being given out because this is what they gave me tonight.
So do you think the fiscal will go down then?
Well, the fiscal is different. The fiscal impact statement that Mr. Miller submitted was different from the outset from this. The the financial impact from DGS should conceivably go down with that taken out. But I won't speak for DGS.
Excuse me, what's coming out?
So Paul, I wanted to point out that when DGS put together this financial assessment, they were operating from the basis of one of the previous versions of Mr. Miller's law, that there was a required annual inspection by the enforcing agency. That's no longer a requirement, so we're going to have to talk to DGS for them to reassess this memo in light of the fact that the current version does not have that requirement. But for transparency's sake, I wanted to give this out to you so that you had it.
Okay, item number...
Wait, can you add me to Mr. Clanahan's G&H, the hot and cold dog car thing?
I'm going. Okay.
The dog thing.
Has the owner of a furry feline friend?
Bark in the park center.
Item number 10,
Park in the
local
park
law
is
number
nice.
J for 2018. This is Mr. Fines, petroleum bulk storage tank.
I'm going to table this. Global got back to me. They're looking over the last correspondence I sent them, and they're going to get back to me shortly. So hopefully I'll have an update next month.
All right, that's helpful. Item number 11 and 12, these are Mr. Mendick's rules. Resolutions are being tabled, is that correct? All right, table number, resolution 236, resolution 238. 13, local law number K, This is Mr. Cunningham, Fair Hotel Consumer Practices.
Table pending the public hearing tomorrow night.
Okay, we're gonna table 13 pending the public hearing. Item number 14, local law M. This is my reduction in the legislature size. We're gonna table this at my request. Item number 15, local law number N. This
Public
is going to be tabled.
Public hearing.
Public hearing on local law number N tomorrow night. Number 16, resolution 281. Okay, we're gonna table item number 16. Item number 17, local law number O. This is the reapportionment bill. Thank you for your time.
Can I just ask a couple of questions, or for the committee's purpose, kind of map out our timetable here?
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so we will have a public hearing resolution at the next law committee meeting. And I believe Patrick is going to be sending it over, unless you need me to do
And Joanne, just so you know, it has, the deadline for the individual exchange is the 30th, so it's got to be to us by noon on the 30th.
Okay. And then this amended language is now so this is the bill.
This is the bill.
Okay, so that means when the public hearing is, this will be made available to the public and released on the website. Okay, and do you need me to do anything so that I get rid of, or you guys can?
Well, you should send the finalized, untracked version that addresses all the changes to the council's office,
Okay,
right?
so I'll
You can't vote
send you
on
that,
track.
and
But
then
this
it
is
will-
good. You know, this is what members want to see. Right?
Right.
To Mr.
Kudos, kudos.
If we can get an
Well, I
untracked version of it.
Yeah, send the
We can get
untracked.
an
So I'll do the untracked and then it will go in as that.
All right, you guys are crushing it in the redistricting game. Good job.
Could, jumping in, could I please be added to M and O?
M&O.
Okay, please add Ms. Ponsky to M&O. Okay, so can we table this at your requests? Sound good to you, Mr. Kraus? You've been
Sounds
working on
good.
this too. Okay.
Sounds good.
Everybody's moving along on this, it's good. All right, 18, resolution 333, this is Mr. Joyce's.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to request we table this month. In light of the memo that we got from the county attorney, I think we need to have him in next month to answer some more detailed questions of your review.
Okay.
I really hate to steal a term from someone who I regret is our president, but I think a repeal and replace is something that we might look to do. Repeal 445 and possibly replace it with something that more effectively does what 445 at least says it's supposed to do in writing. But that's kind of what we're working on now, and I'd like to table it.
Okay, so we'll table item number 18 at the request of the sponsor. Item number 19, resolution 339. We're tabling, that's Mr. Mendix, he's not here. Hopefully, we're gonna do something with all these rules and get him out of here. Wouldn't that be nice? Item number 20, this is Mr. Mendix also, resolution 340, he's not here, we'll table this. If I'm wrong, just let me know. Item number 21, this is another rules request, we'll table that. Item number 22, Mr. Joyce, this is the MRT local law.
Public
Is he here?
hearing.
Where'd he go?
We need the pub.
The public hearing just occurred.
I think he's right out there.
Right?
It's tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
So we're having the public hearing at 22 tomorrow night.
Table pending.
So we'll table that, 22, 23,
Same thing.
table and
Everything's
pending,
tabled.
you know, these are the
Everyone-
reauthorizations for the taxes. Is that all right?
We're good.
Table those?
Yeah.
Pending the public hearings tomorrow,
Yep.
22 and 23? Andrew, this is the MRT and the sales tax.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay, so we'll table those at the request of the sponsor, public hearings for tomorrow. Last bill, local law R. This is the citizenship bill.
They tabled the public hearing.
Mr. Fine, oh crap, did he leave?
He tabled the public hearing, so.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, so that's it. We're done, right? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by myself. All in favor?